Thank you for a fabulous talk and guiding us into this workshop, Johannes. Innovation, participation, new coalitions, what institutions? Colleagues, please, your comments or questions. Sure.
Congratulations for your very, very interesting talk. The former president, Werner Albert, many times say, he's a biologist, that also this loss of diversity and genetic code could be also dangerous for the future of the evolution of. This is also real a problem? Thank you.
So the extinction crisis we are facing at the moment, I'm not an expert on extinction crisis, is one of 6 extinction crises that have hit the world. One of the biggest crises, in my understanding, that has hit the world was then when plants started to produce oxygen, which at that stage was a toxic gas that had not been released on the world. So evolution normally finds a way around that. The question is whether after this or during this extinction crisis, evolution will find a way with or without us as humans being on this planet. I think that is rather the question we are facing. Evolution will go on. It will be very difficult for us as humans to kill the living world, full stop. I think we won't be able to do that.
Virgilio?
Good morning. Thank you for a very thoughtful presentation. I'd like just to echo your call for participation as a way of fostering innovation. I think it's a very good point. I think citizens do want to engage, as you said, and I'd like to ask you to elaborate a little bit on your vision for the call you made about the new coalitions between science and society and faith. And just briefly share with you that there are a number of very interesting initiatives taking place in other parts of the world. And in Brazil, there is something called Sustainable Weekend, which brings together thousands of people engaging in the sustainability agenda. So I think these kinds of connection between a sustainability agenda and young people are probably a very important part of the whole challenge. So I'd just like to ask you to elaborate on this.
Thank you very much. I understand that you have been a politician or you are an active politician.
I have had 3 lives. I was a scientist with a PhD for many years at University of São Paulo together with Bagnotto. And then I was as a minister for 5 years on a non-partisan appointment. And now I'm a director of an NGO in Brazil. So,
well, congratulations. That is a very good way. So I'm running a big scientific institution. So where I have influence is perhaps within science. And so my plea would be at this stage that science needs to change. And I think that scientists, so we are governed by writing publications and getting grants. And that is what is all-consuming. And that is what many of us are doing 7 days a week, not 5 days a week. And I think that's very laudable, and I've done this, and it's wonderful. But I think for starters, we need to take 20% or 25% of our time and of our energy as scientists to start to learn to listen to society. And first of all, we will not be able to understand what they say because they are talking a different language to us and we are talking a different language to them. And we need to have facilitators, we need to have safe spaces to have this type of dialogue. Because the funny thing is, scientists are citizens, but they don't see themselves as that. And we need to learn to listen. And then, after we've learned to listen, then the stage of co-production and participation can happen. So I'm coming from an institution that is 200 years old, so one has to take a long view, and I think it will take a few years to get a new cohort of scientists trained that are able to facilitate co-production, participation, that are willing to learn and to listen. So that's also the agenda that I'm now trying to work in my institution, how to create the next cohort, take the ones that are there with us to learn to listen. And we need to give up time, and the scientific system needs to recognize that we need to spend more time working in society. So fortunately, between 16 and 18, I've chaired a committee for the EU Commission, exactly on this point, how to create a new science system in Europe. These recommendations have now been accepted by all member states, and now the next stage is to implement. And changing the value system, changing the education, and fostering co-production between science and society is this agenda. So we need to see now how the European elections are going to turn out, how the governments are being constituted, but the path is set for this change, and the ministers have agreed. So now it needs to be implemented. But in the end, the change has to come from within the science system itself. They are the most reluctant of all partners. Politics would support it. Science institutions and current scientific leadership do not want to support it, but the organizations assembled here, one leg in science, one leg in society, could be the organizations that set the pace for this new co-production and participation.
Thank you. Theo Pagel, please.
Yes, I'm very impressed that you have started already to talk with the young people. And I would like to know if you have got any experience already or even support by politicians or governmental organizations, because yes, it is science who has to change the world, but at the end I have had to learn that it's mainly the politicians who make the decisions if they have the right advisors. So do you have already some feedback from these key players?
So being in Berlin has some advantages, because funnily enough, politicians also have children, and they also go to school in Berlin. And yes, the politicians have become very curious now on what is happening. But it's a long game. We are in it now for 3 months, but already now the leadership of the political parties in Germany have asked me to broker a meeting with these young people, and these young people have asked me to broker a meeting with the politicians. We are in the process of doing that now. We are just being the convener of all of this, but they've identified us as the go-between, and there's no guarantee that I will get a meeting together, but the approaches have now been made. So let's see how it pans out. But Berlin is a bubble like all capitals, so whether it then filters down to Cologne, I cannot tell you yet, but it might.
Wanderlei Bagnato.
Yeah, well, Dr. Vogel, thank you for a nice and clear presentation. And you said that democracy needs scientifically literate citizens. And I want to agree fully with that. In fact, there is a recent comment that politicians, leaders of nations that had experienced scientific education in the early ages, they are somehow more compromising their activity, and they are really through the truth of nature. They don't take decisions based on their own needs, but the needs of humankind and civilization. So we have to start this new institution from the beginning. So any young kid that has learned and is motivated for science from the very beginning, he's never going to not cooperate for everything you say. So we have to start in the early age. And I think science is today a human right. Everybody has to know a little of science to be able to participate. And this academy is also already seeing this, and we're going to have a meeting next year on education of science as an issue of social integration, because I think if everybody that has science on his mind cooperate, we're having a better world. So I want to congratulate for the points made. Thank you.
Colleagues, let me close by, would you like to speak? No. Let me close by making a couple of remarks. We had a fascinating meeting 2 years ago here in this academy on sustainable development and children. And we had invited 20 children from around the world, teenagers and preteens, 12 to 16-year-old. They formulated a statement for the Academy and for the Pope. I must say their statement was much more pointed and clear than what we from the Academy also issued on that occasion. So I point you to the book which was published in Springer Publishers, and it's open access. We want to do more of this along the lines of what Johannes Vogel has also outlined. Johannes has asked for new institutions. Social scientists define institutions as the rules of the game. We need new rules of the game in this field. And the organizations who manage things to get things done need to get these new institutional arrangements. So let me ask you for a round of applause to Johannes, who kicked us off so well.